Hello everyone, welcome back to our monthly installment of what new games are coming out free to play this month, and but nothing else to say, let's jump right into it. First up, we have got the first Descendant. This one kind of snuck up on me, probably because its release date was just announced a few weeks ago. This is the third-person shared world looter shooter that has some good, some bad, and some pay to win. Well, likely a lot of pay to win, but we'll get to that. So the game touts a wide variety of classes to choose from, a semi-open world to explore with repeatable missions and bosses, all in service of powering up your character and getting cool loot. It is, once again, an MMO looter shooter after all. The general structure of the first Descendant is pretty straightforward. If I were to draw parallels to any other games, I'd say it feels mostly like a mashup of Destiny and Warframe. So after choosing your starter class, you then play through a brief tutorial before being introduced to the open zones, and this is where a bulk of the gameplay experience takes part of. So these are explorable areas in which you'll see a handful of other players running around. They are shared spaces, and there's gonna be various spots with these quest totems. Now the quests are pretty much exactly like Destiny's patrols. You walk up to this mission marker, which is a physical object in the environment. Interacting with it starts the mission, and then enemies and objectives for that mission then spawn into the world, because prior to that, it's just like an empty landscape and building. You start a mission at a marker, and then enemies appear in that shared space. Go in, shoot the enemies, complete some objective, and then move on to the next mission. And then once you complete every quest marker within an area, you'll then be guided to the next zone. Periodically, while going through this process, completing missions with some story woven in, it'll send you back to this main town. It's called Albion. It's a social hub with story NPCs, vendors, crafting stations, storage, a mailbox, other players running around, and not one, but two different cash shops. There's a cash shop for cosmetics and another cash shop for upgrades and progression. And then beyond that, there are other game types, game modes. So there are these void intercept battles, and these are big boss fights that take place in special arenas. They're like these virtual battle simulators. And then there are these special operations, but this, besides the boss fights, is essentially the end game. These are repeatable missions that you'll do at the max level, and you farm these for valuable currency, rewards, and loot that are fueling your power progression. Now, seeing as it is an MMO looter shooter, farming and unlocking stuff is like the main driving motivation in the game. You'll be farming to unlock new characters. Those are the Descendants, new weapons and gear, as well as mods, which are character enhancements that work precisely like they do in Warframe. It's like an identical copy of the system. After spending roughly like 40 hours in the prior beta test, my key takeaways were I liked the gameplay loop. I thought shooting and using abilities felt good and was fun. I thought the movement was great. You got a sprint, a double jump, a mantle, a grapple hook. There were cool environments that actually reminded me a lot of Anthem at times, like this cool like ancient tech, these ruinous buildings. I liked the open shared zones. I really liked a lot of the class design. I thought Bunny was super fun to play, and the boss fights were great, pretty well done encounter mechanics. However, there was a lot of rough edges and lack of polish. The game overall felt rather stiff. Open world, while it looked neat, was lifeless, as nothing is ever happening unless you are actively on a quest. Besides that, the zone is dead empty. It's just like flat terrain and empty buildings. And a lot of the pacing of things, especially as they're tied to questing and objectives, was just kind of boring. Like tons of time spent standing around for 30 straight seconds waiting for another pack of enemies to spawn before you one-shot them, and then standing around for another 30 seconds. So those are all things that they could potentially improve, but really the worst of them all is the fact that this game, without question, is going to be massively pay to win. It's going to be like Warframe in that it utilizes those build timers, gating the speed of your progress. But hey, wouldn't you know it, the game has a currency called credits that you can use to skip those build timers entirely. I mean, there's definitely going to be some fun to be had for sure, but it does seem like it will just be a worse version of Warframe. I mean, maybe not. However, given it is Nexon, we can guarantee that the pay to win will be there. It's a free-to-play game from Nexon, and in light of that company's the revelations over the past year that they were unfairly manipulating drop rates for paid items, I would avoid purchasing anything that has any % chance to fail in this game, because they've been shown that it was proven by the Korean FTC that they were basically ripping off their customers, saying that you could pay to get a thing that wasn't actually possible to get. Total BS. So hey, if you're looking for a Warframe-like game, a shared open world looter shooter, if you want to try something a little new and different for a while, this is going to give you that. Just keep all of the above in mind. The first first Descendant launches on July 2nd, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. You know, I might not be caught up to the 500 hours worth of story required to play this next game, but that doesn't make its release any less noteworthy for this month. Of course, I'm talking about Final Fantasy XIV getting its 5th expansion, Dawntrail. Obviously, I was talking about FF14. What other game has 500 hours of story? So the expansion takes players to Taral, the new world, and is set to be the beginning of a brand new storyline arc. This new area features 2 distinct regions where you will explore various mountains and lush forests. There's going to be 2 new jobs, i.e. classes, being introduced, both of which unlock at level 80. There's a physical melee DPS known as the Viper, who wields dual blades, and a magical range DPS known as the Pictomancer, who wields a paintbrush and palette to paint magical elements, creatures, and landscapes that buff allies and attack enemies. That's a funny class design. In addition, there will be a level cap raise to 100 for all non-limited jobs and classes. Then beyond the story, additional new content includes new side quests, fates, treasure hunts, along with new dungeons and trials. Additionally, there will be an update to the duty support system. Some more features include a new playable race, the female Hrothgar. There's a new 8-player raid, new Alliance and Ultimate raid, new limited job, the Beastmaster, coming in 7.x, new gear and recipes, new variant dungeons, new field operations, PvP updates, new Unreal trials, ongoing content updates are planned, and much more. It is almost comical at this point just how out of the loop I am with this one. It's like the one mainstream MMO that I'm just completely out of touch with. It's absolutely my biggest blind spot in the genre. I mean, pretty much every other big name MMO out there, I have put at least 100, if not potentially thousands of hours into several of those games over the years. But Final Fantasy XIV continues to elude me, and with each passing year, the thought of tackling it becomes more and more daunting. How many hours of story do I have? It's 500 up to this point, I've been told. It's gonna be like 550 or 600 after this expansion. Who knows, man? Maybe when I'm retired, I can finally start playing Final Fantasy XIV. The Dawntrail expansion will be releasing on July 2nd, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Next up is Once Human, another multiplayer open world shared world game, although this one blends a few genres into one, including survival. So it is an open world looter shooter at its base. You'll go around moving through zones, exploring various biomes and points of interest, fighting enemies and bosses, again, as a loot game in search of loot to make yourself stronger. The whole open world feels super MMO-ish and is completely seamless, which is really cool. They got these things called strongholds. These are these distinct named points of interest, like an old factory or an abandoned hospital or a seaside town, which beyond being full of enemies, they're gonna have multiple tasks for you to complete with hidden objectives and even special puzzles. There are world events. These include bosses that roam the map, King of the Hill style horde modes, jumping puzzles, and space whales that trigger zone-wide PvP, which is really neat. Silos are their version of MMO-inspired group dungeons. These are instance areas you move through with a group, clearing packs of enemies and taking on a boss at the end. And then there are the monoliths. These are like pinnacle boss battles as you work your way through progressing through the zones in the story. Sort of similar to what you might expect from like a raid. It's small scale, but like raid-inspired boss fights with huge enemies, challenging mechanics, and multiple phases for you to move through. And then of course, power progression. Besides leveling up, you've got gear to craft with set bonuses that provide massive passive boost, as well as your cradle and deviation systems, which are 2 forms of like an interwoven progression. They both provide perks and special powers for your character. In addition to all of that open world looter shooter MMO stuff, the game's got the full-on survival mechanics with stamina, sanity, hydration, and hunger meters, numerous food, drink, and potions to keep those meters up, as well as giving you buffs like a double jump, for example. There's gathering and crafting, where you harvest materials to construct those weapons and armor, but also for base building, as the game has full-on base construction. You'll lay down a territory and then construct a building of the floors, walls, roofs, and pretty much whatever sort of combination of things that you want. There's a lot I really enjoy about Once Human. I've played the past few tests totaling well over 100 hours sunk in now. Much of the world, the gameplay, the systems, it's like a blending of the Division and Defiance and the Secret World, and there's a lot that I really like about that. All of that said, for as much fun as I've had with this game, it does have issues, and I'm not sure all of those will be ironed out pre-release. Many of our biggest gripes and concerns with the game have persisted from one beta to the next, and we have seen no indication that those things are going to be changing. I would say similar to the first Descendant, we've got another game here that might not be super groundbreaking, but it is something new and different. One positive to Once Human is it's got a really cool setting with that supernatural thing. That's where the Secret World sort of inspiration comes from. And it might be worth at least one playthrough to check out the content. But I will add, no matter how adamantly they are denying it, it. I just don't believe that it won't be pay to win. It is a free-to-play game, and they have got countless special resources and currencies tied directly to power progression. I would be shocked if some portion of that wasn't available for sale, either directly or indirectly via converting something you buy into something that rewards power or progress. My guess is that post-launch, it's going to be this semantics argument where they're going to say, no, we weren't lying, it's not pay to win, based on their very own particular definition of pay to win. But the game, it's almost without question, it's a free-to-play game from NetEase. It's gonna be paid. It's gonna have some variation of pay to win. There's no doubt in my mind. But if you want something new to play and something different, at least for a while, Once Human isn't bad. In fact, like I said, there's many things I've really enjoyed. Once Human will be launching on July 9th for PC and mobile devices. The real-time strategy genre is making a comeback this month. Can you believe it? Or at least that is the hope of Frost Giant Studios with their upcoming game Stormgate. Made by a bunch of ex-Blizzard developers, they are looking to evolve and usher in the next generation of the genre, although it probably won't come as much as a surprise after looking at this gameplay that yes, it does pull heavy inspiration from both StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3. Beyond the way it looks at its core, it very much feels like a blending of those two. You start with a capital building, a handful of workers, and 2 nearby resource nodes to gather. You'll harvest those resources, use them to make more workers, as well as start placing down buildings to produce an army, to research upgrades. There are supply depot / pylon / overlord equivalents as you construct those to prevent being capped. And then depending on your chosen strategy, in some capacity, you will head out to harass and try to eliminate your opponent. Maps are going to have several different spots for base expansion to harvest more resources faster. And just like Warcraft 3, there are creep camps around the map. You're going to find camps of NPCs that you can take on for valuable upgrades. These include camps to get bonus resources for healing, vision, and speed upgrades for your units. There are 3 confirmed playable races. You got the Human Resistance that's focused on tech. This is sort of like the Terran equivalent. They've got what is basically the Bio Ball, that Marine Marauder Medic combination, and other similar Terran similarities. The Infernals are an alien race that feels like a blending of Zerg and undead. They also have a creep mechanic equivalent where when on the creep, it replenishes your infernal health unit overshields. And then most recently revealed was the Celestial Armada. This is an advanced spiritual alien race that sure looks a heck of a lot like the Protoss. So each race will have its own playstyle and strengths, as you expect. There's a lot of rock, paper, scissors interactions here. There are even global abilities unique to every race. So for example, the Infernals, for a short duration, can cover the entire map in their creep equivalent, boosting that shield generation to their units in the middle of a fight. There's going to be hero units for co-op and 3 vs 3 modes. There will be a variety of game modes. There's competitive 1v1 and ongoing campaign, that 3-player co-op versus AI, as well as custom games. And there's going to be, as you expect, a wide range of maps with different designs, layouts, and locations. As someone who grew up playing both StarCraft and Warcraft RTS, I was a big fan of Warcraft 3. I played the prior 2, I played the first StarCraft, and as you probably know, if you've been following this channel, I played a little bit of StarCraft 2 as well. I am compelled to check out Stormgate for sure. I'm not absolutely in love with the visuals or the graphics of this game. Something about it looks kind of flimsy, cheap, and I don't mean that. It just looks, something about it just feels a little off. But you know what? The visuals aren't super important, really. I'm definitely looking forward to getting my hands on the game and probably getting my butt kicked in ranked 1v1s. I'll be digging around in search of the closest equivalent for the 6-pool / cannon / proxy gateway zealot rush tactics. They gotta be out there, right? Stormgate is launching into Steam Early Access on July 30th. Also, it is free to play. They'll be selling cosmetic skins, which is probably best for the potential player base in a genre of games that is on the decline. I mean, come on, RTS are pretty much dead, but maybe Stormgate can bring it back. All right, those are the main games. Let's talk about the other honorable mentions. Zenless Zone Zero. This is a free-to-play urban fantasy ARPG developed and published by HoYoverse, the studio behind the massively successful Genshin Impact. While this looks to have some features, systems, and probably monetization similarities, the game also has stuff setting it apart. So the story takes place in the near future where a mysterious natural disaster known as the Hollows has occurred. You take on the role of a proxy, this character who helps others explore this hostile alternate dimension. As you progress, you're going to recruit new members to your party, and you're able to combine their abilities for combos as you fight the invading ethereal enemies. There's gonna be tons of unique characters that will no doubt be tied to the gacha mechanic, each with their own set of weapons and skills. You'll be able to switch between them for different play styles. It's got action combat designed to be easy to learn for newcomers and swipers, while also providing depth and challenge for veterans and free-to-play players. Zenless Zone Zero is not open world. Unlike Genshin Impact, you won't have a big open spaces and fields to explore. Rather, they are focused on the smaller but more densely packed city environment as you navigate a section of the game's main city, New Eridu, with stuff to see and do around every corner. You know, people absolutely rave about Genshin Impact. Despite the gacha, I've heard it's basically a free-to-play Breath of the Wild. Never get around to playing it myself, but I might give this one a look, just at the very least to see what everyone's so ecstatic about. Zenless Zone Zero launches on July 4th, coming to PC, PlayStation, and mobile devices. Cataclismo is an upcoming real-time strategy tower defense game that looks interesting. Set in this post-apocalyptic world in which a magical cataclysm created a suffocating mist that is spread everywhere. During the daytime, you're going to go around exploring, collecting resources, which you will then invest into technology to unlock and train new troops, as well as build and expand your stronghold with new buildings, traps, and facilities. The game features a building system that lets you freely mix and match more than 100 pieces to create towers, walls, and other defensive structures. And then as day passes and eventually you move into night, your settlement will become under attack by these large hordes of mutated enemies known as the Horrors. You'll use the defenses and troops you built during the day as you attempt to prevent the enemies from destroying your citadel. Units will automatically attack enemies when they're in close proximity, but then you'll have to guide them to put them in strategic positions to give them a tactical advantage. The defensive buildings, as you construct, they will actually crumble when they're damaged, sometimes collapsing, damaging anything underneath them, including your allies. And according to Digital Sun, the game will feature a campaign as well as 3 additional modes: creative, survival, and skirmish. Strongholds constructed by players can also be shared online through Steam Workshops. If you make like a really cool defensive base, you can share it with other people, which is pretty neat. I think this game actually looks cool. I played something like this not too many years ago and really enjoyed it. Hopefully this one holds up as well. Cataclismo is coming to PC via Steam on July 16th. There is a demo available right now as well if you want to check the game out. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, is a new third-person action RPG. You play as Norva Neck, a member of a coalition attempting to save mankind from extinction by fighting against the old gods. This looks like another one of those mid-tier AA RPGs that we're getting. I love to see these games because what they may lack in budget and polish, they can absolutely make up for in charm and uniqueness, and we'll see if Flintlock does that. The gameplay centers around the use of melee weapons combined with Flintlock firearms. You'll be blending these two while attacking enemies. As you attack or parry incoming attacks, you will gradually fill up a meter over enemies' heads, and then once that's full, you can deliver this devastating blow that will basically kill basic enemies or significantly weaken larger enemies and bosses. Executing enemies using your axe refills your ammo for your Flintlock weapons, while killing enemies with your firearm restores your armor, so there's a cool system at play there as you balance the 2 types of attacks. You're accompanied by Enki, a fox-like creature who can be commanded to distract or stun enemies, teleport the player, or infuse your attacks with magic. The game features an open world divided into 3 regions. You'll come across different side activities that can change the state of the world and its population. So for instance, if you kill all of the enemies in a village, this will prompt the original community to return, unlocking new quest and side content for you to do. There are progression upgrades as well, as this is an RPG. You can craft and upgrade items, you can purchase weapons, and you'll unlock new abilities to power up your offensive capabilities as you level up. Yeah, Flintlock seems pretty interesting. Again, it's like this AA RPG game, and these things, while they might not be the most polished and the best looking out there, they can certainly deliver a fun experience. The game will be launching on July 18th, coming to PC, PlayStation, Xbox. Also, there is a demo available for this one as well. Now, if you were curious about either Frostpunk 2 or Smite 2, I got some bad news. Both of those games have been delayed. Frostpunk 2 was set to release this month, but after feedback from a recent playtest, they've decided to postpone the launch to be improving, adding additional game mechanics, extensive UI and UX enhancements, as well as this brand new feature called Zoom Stories. I know this game was highly anticipated by many, but no, it's actually not coming out this month. The new release date is set for September 20th. And then yes, Smite 2 was also supposed to launch this month, originally set for July 30th. This is the sequel to my much beloved third-person character action MOBA. I think the only one that I really truly enjoyed. I played that game for years. Well, they decided to release a sequel, updating things, but that launch is pushed back. They're saying they're taking the extra time to implement tons of changes based on feedback. It's now going to be releasing on August 27th. All right, and then lastly, we got quite a few betas and alphas for you to know about. So first, there is Corepunk. It is returning for another round of alpha testing. Starting on July 1st and running until the 7th, they seem to have made some improvements and hopefully solve the issues of the last test that forced them to shut it down early. You know, I continue to be curious and hopeful about this game. I am definitely going to be jumping back in to see what's changed since my last playtime. I'm hoping to see a lot more variety of content, more things to do besides just walking around the overland. Like, I would love dungeons. We know they're supposed to be here, but we haven't got to see them. I also want to see some improvements to quality of life and some further of the progression systems. You can register for a chance to get into Alpha 3 over at corepunk.com. Remember Dark and Darker? Well, that game's getting some competition this month in Dungeonborne. We played previous tests and we're pretty impressed. It seems to do quite a lot right and could very well be a nice new addition to this fantasy dungeon crawl extraction genre. Pretty hopeful here. They've got a playtest starting on July 3rd. You can get on the list to be invited by heading over to their Steam page and requesting access, although there are limited slots available, so not everyone is going to get to play. Bitcraft is getting its second closed alpha on July 8th. You know, I went in with pretty high hopes for this game, but frankly, I was pretty unimpressed during the last alpha. The game just lacked any satisfying loop to keep me playing past the first few hours, honestly. I was pretty bored come the end of it, but it is alpha. The game's still got a long road ahead, and I will keep tabs on it. Hopefully, eventually, everything clicks and I find some enjoyment out of it. Alpha registration is available on their website at bitcraftonline.com. And then last but not least, it is nearly time we finally get our hands on Throne and Liberty. Amazon will be hosting a beta test for the global version from July 18th to the 23rd. Beyond localization, we have been told the game is pretty much going to be identical to the Korean release. I suspect for that reason, we're going to be looking at another launch similar to New World and Lost Ark. Hilariously enough, both also published by Amazon. It'll probably pull quite a few players at launch and then drop off substantially a few weeks to a month later, or basically the typical new MMO life cycle that's been the case for many, many games over this past decade. I am at least looking forward to a few good weeks of fun playing with everyone, and we'll get a taste of that in this upcoming beta. By the way, this is an open beta, which means no registration required. Everyone is invited to play. I'm looking forward to it. And with that, we will wrap up this month's list. June was pretty slow overall. I mean, we had Shadow of the Air Tree, but besides that, it was a pretty slow month for new releases. Whereas between all these alpha and beta tests and some of the new games coming out, looks like I'm going to be pretty busy in July. Let me know what you guys think. Did you find any games that you're interested in checking out? It's kind of my goal here with this. Well, I guess it's like any list video. Just here to share with you what's coming up, what we know about it, and what I think. Overall, yeah, there's some games to play. I'm going to play the first Descendant. I'm going to play Once Human. I'm going to play Stormgate. I'd like to check out some of these other ones as well. And I got a whole bunch of betas to play. So yeah, again, it'll be busy. Thanks again. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.